Hi, my name is Cheyenne Haven, and I am a social worker and a stay-at-home parent living in Alameda, California. I am reading from a legal memo written by John Yu and signed by Assistant Attorney General J. Bybee. The August 1st, 2002 memo addresses the proposed interrogation of a detainee named Abu Zubaydah.
Hi, my name is Tobias Smith. I'm a law student living in San Francisco, California. I'm reading from Abu Zubaydah's first-hand account of his interrogation in a secret CIA prison. He gave this testimony to the International Committee of the Red Cross.
You have asked for this office's view on whether certain proposed conduct would violate the prohibition against torture found in Section 2340A of Title 18 of the United States Code. You have asked for this advice in the course of conducting interrogations of Abu Zubaydah. In light of the information you believe Zubaydah has and the high level of threat you believe now exists, you wish to move the interrogations into what you have described as an increased pressure phase. This phase will likely last no more than several days, but could last up to 30 days.
About 2.5 or 3 months after I arrived in this place, the interrogation began again, but with more intensity than before. Then the real torturing started.
In this phase, you would likely employ 10 techniques that you believe will dislocate his expectations regarding the treatment he believes he will receive and encourage him to disclose the crucial information mentioned above. These 10 techniques are 1. Attention grasp, 2. Walling, 3. Facial hold, 4. Facial slap, insult slap, 5. Cramped confinement, 6. Wall standing, 7. Stress positions, 8. Sleep deprivation, 9. Insects placed in a confinement box, and 10. The waterboard. You have informed us that you expect these techniques to be used in some sort of escalating fashion, culminating with the waterboard, though not necessarily ending with this technique.
2 black wooden boxes were brought into the room outside my cell. One was tall, slightly higher than me and narrow, measuring perhaps 1 meter by 3/4 of a meter and 2 meters in height. The other was shorter, perhaps only 1 meter in height. I was taken out of my cell and one of the interrogators wrapped a towel around my neck. They then used it to swing me around and smash me repeatedly against the hard walls of the room. I was also repeatedly slapped in the face. As I was still shackled, the pushing and pulling around meant that the shackles pulled painfully on my ankles.
Cramped confinement involves the placement of the individual in a confined space, the dimensions of which restrict the individual's movement. The confined space is usually dark. The duration of confinement varies based on the size of the container. For the larger confined space, the individual can stand up or sit down. The smaller space is large enough for the subject to sit down. Confinement in the larger space can last up to 18 hours. For smaller space, the confinement lasts no more than 2 hours.
I was then put into the tall box for what I think was about 1.5 to 2 hours. The box was totally black on the inside as well as on the outside. It had a bucket inside used as a toilet, and water to drink provided in a bottle. They put a cloth cover over the outside of the box to cut out the light and restrict my air supply. It was difficult to breathe.
For walling, a flexible false wall will be constructed. The individual is placed with his heels touching the wall. The interrogator pulls the individual forward and then quickly and firmly pushes the individual into the wall. It is the individual's shoulder blades that hit the wall. During this motion, the head and neck are supported with a rolled hood or towel that provides a C-collar effect to prevent whiplash. To further reduce the probability of injury, the individual is allowed to rebound from the flexible wall. You have orally informed us that the false wall is in part constructed to create a loud sound when the individual hits it, which will further shock or surprise the individual.
When I was let out of the box, I saw that one of the walls of the room had been covered with plywood sheeting. From now on, it was against this wall that I was then smashed with a towel around my neck. I think that the plywood was there to provide some absorption of the impact of my body. The interrogators realized that smashing me against the hard wall would probably quickly result in physical injury. During these torture sessions, many guards were present, plus 2 interrogators who did the actual beating still asking questions, which the main interrogator left to return when the beating was over. After the beating, I was then placed in the small box. They placed a cloth or cover over the box to cut out all the light and restrict my air supply. As it was not high enough even to sit upright, I had to crouch down. It was very difficult because of my wounds. The wounds on my leg began to open and started to bleed. I don't know how long I remained in the box. I think I may have slept or maybe fainted.
Finally, you would like to use a technique called the waterboard. In this procedure, the individual is bound securely to an inclined bench, which is approximately 4 feet by 7 feet. The individual's feet are generally elevated. A cloth is placed over the forehead and eyes. Water is then applied to the cloth in a controlled manner. As this is done, the cloth is lowered until it covers the nose and mouth. Once the cloth is saturated and completely covers the mouth and nose, airflow is slightly restricted for 20 to 40 seconds due to the presence of the cloth. This causes an increase in carbon dioxide levels in the individual's blood. This increase in carbon dioxide level stimulates increased effort to breathe.
I was then dragged from the small box, unable to walk properly, and put on what looked like a hospital bed and strapped down very tightly with belts. A black cloth was then placed over my face, and the interrogators used a mineral water bottle to pour water on the cloth so that I could not breathe. After a few minutes, the cloth was removed, and the bed was rotated into an upright position. The pressure of the straps on my wounds was very painful. I vomited.
You have orally informed us that this procedure triggers an automatic physiological sensation of drowning that the individual cannot control, even though he may be aware that he is in fact not drowning.
I struggled against the straps, trying to breathe, but it was hopeless. I thought I was going to die. I lost control of my urine. Since then, I still lose control of my urine when under stress.
In order for pain or suffering to rise to the level of torture, the statute requires that it be severe. Although the confinement boxes, both small and large, are physically uncomfortable because their size restricts movement, they are not so small as to require the individual to contort his body to sit or stand.
I was then placed again in the tall box. While I was inside the box, loud music was played again, and somebody kept banging repeatedly on the box from the outside. I tried to sit down on the floor, but because of the small space, the bucket with urine tipped over and spilt over me. I remained in the box for several hours, perhaps overnight.
No pain, even approaching severe pain, results.
I was then taken out, and again a towel was wrapped around my neck, and I was smashed into the wall and repeatedly slapped in the face by the same two interrogators as before. I was then made to sit on the floor with a black hood over my head until the next section of torture began.
As we explained in the Section 2340A memorandum, pain and suffering is best understood as a single concept, not distinct concepts of pain as distinguished from suffering.
This went on for approximately 1 week. During this time, the whole procedure was repeated 5 times.
The waterboard, which inflicts no pain or actual harm whatsoever, does not, in our view, inflict severe pain or suffering.
On each occasion, I was suffocated once or twice and was put in the vertical position on the bed in between. On one occasion, the suffocation was repeated 3 times. I vomited each time.
Even if one were to treat suffering as a distinct concept, the waterboard could not be said to inflict severe suffering.
I collapsed and lost consciousness on several occasions. Eventually, the torture was stopped by the intervention of the doctor.
The waterboard is simply a controlled acute episode.
I was told during this period that I was one of the first to receive these interrogation techniques, so no rules applied. It felt like they were experimenting and trying out techniques to be used later on other people. My name is Tobias Smith, and I'm a law student at the University of California, Berkeley, and we're here at University of California, Berkeley Bolt School of Law, and we chose this location because John Yu, one of the authors of this memo, is a professor here. And I think it's important to reckon with torture because I think that torture is anathema to the rule of law.
My name is Cheyenne Haven. I'm a social worker by training and currently a stay-at-home parent. I think it's important to reckon with torture. I think at its most basic, it's inhumane and uncivilized, and I don't think there is any evidence to suggest that it's effective.